I hope this sweater doesn't burn your eyes like it burns mine. Recently, I made the decision to pick up and buy every single book that I see and like in a store nearby, and luckily for me, I haven't found that many, or so I thought. I somehow managed to buy 34 books within less than 2 months. So I just decided to show them to you because they're just lying around and I would like to put them back on my shelves, but I never do that until I actually organize myself into action, and I thought filming this video would be a great prerequisite to do so. All this unnecessary jibber jabber aside, I have decided to split those books into 2 categories, and those are fantasy and non-fantasy, because as always with me, fantasy is dominating. And if you don't trust me, you can watch my previous book hauls, which I will link somewhere over here. So let's begin. We're gonna start with the fantasy portion of this video, and the first book we're gonna start with is The Desert Prince by Peter V. Brett. I don't know anything about this book, and if you've watched any of my previous book hauls, you know that that's a theme with me. I saw this one in a bookstore nearby, and I liked the title, The Desert Prince. I have a soft spot for books featuring the desert and set up in the desert, and this one sounded great to me. I think it's young adult or adult, I'm not sure, but I will do something that I hate when other people do and read to you from the back. 15 years have passed since the demons were destroyed. Heroes have become legend, and those that remain live in their shadows. Olive, Princess of Hollow, has her entire life planned out, but the more her mother, Leisha Paper, writes the script, the more Olive rails against playing the parts that she's assigned. Darren is the son of the man people say saved the world. Everyone expects greatness from Darren. The only thing he's ever been great at is hiding. But now it's time to fight the darkness. When Olive and Darren step across the wards one night, they learn that the demons are not all gone, and those that remain hunger for revenge. Are Darren and Olive ready to be heroes? Well, this sounds somewhat lame, but I'm still looking forward to reading it, and I will keep you posted as to what I think about it. Next, we have The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is a very famous book. It's the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy. I have the first one, the 5th season, somewhere on my shelves. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard great things about it, and I know that N.K. Jemisin is a very creative author with a lot of imagination who sets very original ideas, so I'm looking forward to reading the series, and when I saw this one in a store, I couldn't pass it by. And then we have another second book in the series which I haven't started yet, and that is The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. This is the second book in the Drowning Empire series. The first one, The Bone Shard Daughter, is somewhere on my shelves. Again, I haven't read it yet. I read like 2 or 3 chapters from it once when I was trying a chapter to see what I would like to read, and I very much enjoyed it. I thought the magic system was very creative, and I was very much looking forward to reading it, but other things got in the way, so now I'm hopeful that I will be able to pick it up soon. And then we have another second book in a series with the same circumstances as the previous 2, and that is The Subtle Knife by Philip Pullman. This is book number 2 in his Dark Materials series, and the first one, Northern Lights, is again somewhere on my shelves. I have started it before, haven't finished it, enjoyed what I read, looking forward to it. This is a young adult, I believe, or middle grade fantasy. I don't know, people say that it has way more grown-up themes than a middle grade or young adult would entail, but I've watched The Golden Compass, the original movie they made many years ago, and flopped spectacularly, but I very much enjoyed it at the time, and it made me love this world, and I'm very much looking forward to reading the series. And then we have a fantasy book that I'm not entirely sure I'm gonna like, and it's called Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. This is a very famous book, or at least it was a few years ago, but it's young adult, and I seem to have moved away from young adult recently. Also, the plot of the book sounds not entirely up my alley. People say that it's kind of like Project Runway fantasy, and I gotta be honest, that doesn't spark my interest very much, but I have some friends whose opinions I very much value, and they say that this one is great and I should give it a try, and so I decided that I should. And then we have a gigantic behemoth of a book, and that is The Lonesome Crown by Brian Lee Durfee. This is book number 3 in the 5 Warrior Angels series. Brian Lee Durfee is here on YouTube, and I love watching his videos, and when I heard that he has written a series, I couldn't pass it by. Fun fact, I have book 2 here on my shelves, but book 1 hasn't arrived yet. I ordered it first, and it still hasn't made its way to me. I think it's stuck on the border for some reason. I have to provide some additional documents. this is not very interesting to you, but I haven't started the series chiefly because of the reason that I don't have book 1 here yet. Otherwise, look at this floppiness. It's just so satisfying to hold it in my hands. It's a great quality book, and yeah, I'm very much looking forward to giving it a try. As I already mentioned, I'm a big fan of Brian Lee Durfee as a YouTuber. I value his opinions, and so I would like to support him and read his series. And then, would you believe it, we have another book 2 in a series, and that is The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. This is book number 2 in the Kingkiller Chronicles, and I started reading book 1, The Name of the Wind, a while ago. Very much enjoyed it. Had to drop it for other things that I had to do, and it's on my December TBR. If you haven't watched my TBR video, you can watch it over here, but I'm very much looking forward to it. When I saw that the second book was here in a store, I couldn't pass it by. Also, look at this beautiful cover. I don't know if you can see it very well, but I love it. And then we have Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians by Brandon Sanderson. This is book number 1 in the series that carries the same name, and I believe it's either middle grade or young adult, and I don't know anything about it besides the fact that the title very much appeals to me, and it's Brandon Sanderson, obviously, so I'm looking forward to reading it. So much so that I actually purchased book number 5 in the same series, and that is The Dark Talent. Now, why I purchased only books 1 and 5 is because those were the ones that were available in the store. So once I have read book 1, and if I find that I like it, I'm going to purchase the rest of them, and if I don't, I will pass it by to someone. There's a lot of kids around me, so there's always an opportunity to surprise somebody else with a nice book that might not be for me. And then we have a book that I am super curious about, and that is Dragons of Deceit by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. Now, this is book based on Dungeons and Dragons. I personally have never played Dungeons and Dragons for one reason or another, but this type of gameplay really appeals to me with all the creativity and all the immersion that it involves. And so when I saw this book, I was like, I need to give it a try. So here I am giving it a try. I mean, I purchased it. I'm hopeful that I'll be able to read it soon. And look at this floppiness. Again, I know absolutely nothing about it, but I'm very curious. And next we have a book that absolutely everybody is familiar with, and that is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is the first book in the series that carries the same name. And again, everybody has read it and everybody knows about it. I have read it myself too a few years ago, and I quite enjoyed it, surprisingly to me, because I'm not a big fan of smutty books. But the fantasy in this one is super interesting, and I love the world that Sarah J. Maas has built, and so I decided to purchase it now, because back in the day I borrowed it from someone to read it. And I was curious whether I will enjoy it again as much as I did the previous time, and maybe buddy read it with someone, I don't know. But again, I saw it and I bought it. And then we have a book that I am so excited about, and that is The Gunslinger by Stephen King. This is book number 1 from the Dark Tower series and is very famous. To be honest, I can't believe I haven't read it yet. I mean, granted, I haven't read Stephen King in many years. I'm a bit of a wimp, so I stay away from the scarier books. But this is a staple in fantasy, and I can't believe I stayed away from it for so long. I managed to find it in this lovely hardcover edition, and it's very short. I didn't expect it, but I think it's like 300 pages or so only, so I am very much looking forward to reading it. I have some of the other books from the series here on my bookshelves because I managed to find them in a bookstore here in Bulgaria prior to it, but then I couldn't find this one until now, and now I can't wait to pick it up. Which I guess I'm saying about pretty much all of the books, but whatever. And then, sticking with the theme of things that I can't wait to read, we have The Dragonbone Chair, The Stone of Farewell, and To Green Angel Tower. All of those are from Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, I believe, series by Tad Williams. Now, Tad Williams has been praised by so many people whose opinions I respect, so I have always wanted to read it. I know that this author and his writing has inspired a lot of authors whom I love, so now I thought it was about time to pick up his series and read them, and I managed to find these 3 in these lovely old-timey fantasy covers. I really love this style, and even though they're the mass market paperbacks, I don't care. I couldn't possibly not purchase these. And the last book that is strictly in the fantasy series is a very special one to me, and that is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. This is the beautiful illustrated edition, and is in Bulgarian actually, but I will not keep this one because it's actually going to be a present for my niece for Christmas, one of the presents I got her for Christmas, because she just started school this year and is currently learning to read. And so I thought it would be the best time to introduce her to this series and to the world of reading in general, and I'm pretty sure she's gonna love it, and I can't wait to share this with her. And now we're gonna move to the non-fantasy portion of this video, although what I'm gonna introduce you to next is actually still kind of fantasy-ish. It's manga, and it's 4 volumes from the same manga series, and that is Full Metal Alchemist volumes 6, 7, 8, and 9. So we have 6, 7, volume 8, and volume 9. Now, I started reading manga for the first time in my life last year, and I started with Full Metal Alchemist, and I have read up until volume 5. Actually, I read volume 5 last month in November. You can see my wrap up over here, but I absolutely love this series. I think it's adorable. I think it's also very hard sometimes, and I love the plot, and I love the world, and I love the intrigue that is woven into it. So I can't wait to continue with the series. Matter of fact, I wanted to read volume 6 right after finishing volume 5. Unfortunately, I didn't own it at the time. I just managed to purchase them, so now that I have them, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna pick this one in the next few days. Next, we're gonna continue with some classics, and the first one is Emma by Jane Austen. Now, this edition, this beautiful edition, is in Bulgarian, and I am currently reading it, as you can probably see. I've always fashioned myself a big Jane Austen fan and always hailed her as one of my favorite authors. So I was shocked when I figured out that up until last year, I had only read one of her books, and that is Pride and Prejudice. Now, granted, I had read it close to 10 times at the time, but still, it's just one work from an author. And so last year I picked up Mansfield Park, and to be honest with you, this is the most entertaining, boring book I have ever read. I can't find any better way to describe it, but that's not what we're going to be talking about right now. Now, a few days ago, me and a friend of mine were wondering what to buddy read, and this came up as an option, and I was obviously very glad to pick it up. And so far, I am enjoying it very, very much. One thing about Jane Austen is that she manages to write these very colorful and memorable characters. Each and every single one of them is different, and everyone comes out of the page. That's how vivid they are to me. I am having a good time. And then we're going to continue with a few more classics, the first of which is Alice in Wonderland. Alice in Wonderland was one of the first books I remember reading, and one of the first books I remember getting me so much in love with the process of reading a book. And I had reread it multiple times. I got it for my birthday many years ago, but ever since then the book has kind of fallen apart. I've read it and reread it again so many times. So I saw this one in English and immediately decided to purchase it, and I am looking forward to reading it for the first time in my life in English. It has these lovely illustrations that just make the experience so much nicer when you read it. And then I found this lovely little tiny edition of Through the Looking Glass and What Alice Found There. This is special festive edition. Apparently it is adorable. Look at these lovely covers and these lovely end pages. It has golden sprayed edges, and the entirety of it is in red on the inside. Now I'm really hopeful I'll be able to properly read these tiny letters, but I just adore this little edition of it. And then to continue with the middle grade classics, I have Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi. This is one of my favorite stories of all time. I loved it when I was a kid, and I had reread it so many times back in the day. And now when I saw it in this edition, I couldn't pass it by. Now, if you watch my previous book hauls, you know that I collect these editions of children's classics, and I am so happy that I managed to find this one in this edition. And again, it has these lovely little illustrations spread throughout the book. I am so excited to read it. This is going to be my first time reading it in English. Next, we have a play by William Shakespeare, and that is Midsummer Night's Dream. I have watched the movie based on this, but have never really read the play. Recently, I've been trying to get more into reading classics in verse, and I thought this could be a good start because it's not very big, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy it. Next, we have a children's classic that I don't know much about, and that is The Railway Children by Edith Nesbit. I have never read this one as a kid or as a grown-up, although I have heard a lot about it, but it has never really crossed my mind. So now that I saw it, I thought it would be nice to actually be able to give it a try. I don't know if you can see much about these covers. They're very beautiful with their golden writing, but it's kind of difficult to distinguish on camera, and especially with my lighting. This is another book that has lovely illustrations in black and white on the inside. Here's another one. So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to pick it up soon. It's not very long, so I'm sure it's going to take me very little to get to it. And then we have another children's classic that I actually read for the first time a few days ago and love, and that is Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. This book has been recommended by a friend of mine with whom we actually buddy read it recently, actually just a few days ago, and I gotta tell you, I love this book. It is so adorable. It is so atmospheric, and it taught me so much about horses. So many things I never really knew, things that got me even more curious to read about horses, and now I want to have a horse, which is such a random thing. But I highly recommend it. If you have kids, please read it to them, and if you don't, please read it to yourself. It just warmed my heart. And then we're gonna move on to a bit of sci-fi. The first book I have in this sort of category is Shards of Earth by Andrei Tchaikovsky. This is a very famous book. I believe it came out last year or something, and a lot of people have read it and sang its praises, and I've been looking forward to reading it for the longest time, and I saw it in the store the other day and I immediately picked it up. I don't know anything about it, and I don't want to before I pick it up. I prefer to go into this kind of books surprising myself, basically. And then the next sci-fi we have is a translated work, and it's called The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I don't know anything about this book, but when I was in the bookstore, a friend of mine was with me and she has read this book and told me that she loved it, so I immediately picked it up, and I've been looking forward to reading more translated works, so this was a great opportunity. And speaking of translated works, we have a contemporary book, which is very unusual for me, but here it is. That is Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. Now, if you're anywhere on social media and interested in books, you've probably seen this one countless times. I have heard, again, great things about it, and many people have said that it's weird, but in a great way. And we're gonna end this video with a few thrillers. The first one is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Now, this is a very famous book, or at least it was recently. I don't know much about it besides that it's similar to And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, which I also haven't read yet. But to my knowledge, there is an isolation trope in this one, and I really love that type of trope, so I am looking forward to reading it. And next we have 3 books that are from one of my favorite series, and that is the Jack Reacher series by Lee Child, and the first book is Killing Floor, which is the first book in the series. I read it recently and absolutely loved it, but I didn't own it physically because I couldn't find it at the time, and now with the TV show they released this tie-in mass market paperback, and I saw it in the store nearby and purchased it. And then the other 2 books I have from this series are Persuader and The Hard Way. I think this one is number 7 and this one is number 10, but I'm not entirely sure. I don't know anything about their plot, and I don't want to because it's best to read those and be surprised. Now, the Jack Reacher series is one of my favorites and I highly recommend it. It's an old school storytelling somewhat, with a strong masculine guy who's running around and chasing bad guys, and he's better than all of them and knows more than all of them. And I know that's not everybody's taste, but to me this is very cozy and I very much enjoy it. So if this sounds like something for you, I very much advise you to read this one. Again, Lee Child has this lovely way of writing that is always very immersive and just one of my favorites. And that's gonna do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to see me haul 71 books, you can check out this one. Bye!